Hello and welcome to This Week at the Movies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Eric.
And this week, we're taking our rings and going back to Middle Earth. That's right. We are going to be looking at the new Lord of the Rings movie. We're also going to be talking about the Lord of the Rings adjacent television series, which finished its second season this fall on Prime Video. So it is all Middle Earth. And then at the end, I'll throw out a few cinematic recommendations for you. It is award screener season, as Eric knows. I think I've been averaging 3 movies a day, and I still feel like I'm falling behind, which is quite something. But we're going to kick it off with Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. It has been 21 years since Peter Jackson wrapped up his original Lord of the Rings trilogy on the big screen, ending with a Best Picture victory for Return of the King in 2003. It's been a decade since we saw the wrap up of the Hobbit franchise, but people's enjoyment and interest and entertainment in the Lord of the Rings universe has never waned. So we are getting a return to the world. This one is produced by Peter Jackson. A lot of the same production team, has the same Lord of the Rings title card pops up. You hear some of that familiar Lord of the Rings music to get you excited. But this one is a little bit decidedly different. An animated film set 183 years before the events of Lord of the Rings. This one is a prequel tale that tells you the story basically of how Helm's Deep got its name. It is narrated for us by a familiar character from that world, Eowyn, returning voice of Miranda Otto, who played her in the live action films. But this one, directed by Kenji Kamiyama, has a very kind of anime style. I thought that was interesting. It worked. It hews a lot closer to something you would see from Miyazaki than something you would see from Pixar in terms of the animated style.
Yeah.
A little over 2 hours, so probably the shortest Lord of the Rings film ever made. But this one, you go back and learn more about Rohan during the time of King Helm Hammerhand, voiced by Brian Cox, who's probably the only other real recognizable voice actor here. Our central character that we follow and go through the eyes of is his daughter Hera, voiced by Gaia Wise. And it basically tells the story of the falling out of Helm's family and one of his Lord Freka, and his son Wolf, and kind of the ensuing war. I wasn't sure what this was going to be like. I have not actually read the Silmarillion. I've read the Hobbit. I've read the 3 Lord of the Rings. But I know this is a tale out of the Silmarillion. I work with a gentleman at my school who loves J.R.R. Tolkien and all of the world. He was really excited about this, telling me kind of where it falls in the book. I was excited to take it in. It was a different kind of story, one I'm not super familiar with, but I enjoyed the way this one played out. I enjoyed the character of Helm Hammerhand, even though it's fascinating and wild at times. I liked his daughter Hera. I liked the basic construct and some of the battle sequences and stuff here. It's not my favorite animated film of the year. It's not my favorite of the Lord of the Rings film, but I thought this was solid, enjoyable, definitely something that fans or families might flock to during this point in the year.
Sometimes I think it would be interesting if we disagreed more on stuff so that we'd have some back and forth. But no, this is a hard thumb up for me. I went into this with preset expectation that I was going to get something akin to Princess Mononoke mixed with the flavor of Lord of the Rings. And that is exactly what I got. And so I was happy. I didn't go in expecting it to be more anime driven and, missing some, I even had this thing in my head, they should use some of the themes from the original Lord of the Rings. I want to hear the theme of the Rohirrim. I want to hear this. And they use music repurposed from the original trilogy, but the original composers for the thing I think fit right in. I think it's a seamless blend. I feel like I was ready for this movie to be what it was, and I really adored it. Every voice performance, nobody stuck out to me as being particularly overacty. There are some little tropes of being a prequel where they have to point out the Crowin from Dunland, and they have to say things that you've heard in other movies. And then there are tropes from anime. There are characters like the old lady that are like archetypes that you see and whatnot. But I think they merge really well, and we get a little bit more, lore from a very interesting part of the Lord of the Rings. And the shots are beautiful, and the character design in particular is iconic. There's so much to appreciate in just the look of the outfits and clothing and design of each character. And my only issue I think I have is in general, it has that thing, the old Scooby-Doo thing going on, where the background is a very detailed painting. So there's a piece of the frame that is very clearly made to be animated, like a brick that sticks out that is going to move or something. They just, from the very opening shot of the movie, you see a map, and then you move in and you see mountains, and the mountains look almost real, almost digitally created to look real. And then these fully 2D animated hawks fly in overhead, and I'm like, okay, that feels a little jarring. And there was a lot of that with fire. There was a lot of CG smooth moving fire next to, animated movement of characters. And I just think it could have been a little bit more blended. There could have been a little bit more 2D to the environments. But no, I think it was great. It was just me and my wife and our friend, and we were laughing a lot at Helm Hammerhand's ability to just continually, I mean, I'm not, without spoiling what happens, there's something that happens to him, and even though he was out in the cold, like weaponless, he suddenly has a hammer in his hand. And it's just, he's an icon. It's great. I just strong thumb up. I think it is a little bit odd that this is not the only thing from Lord of the Rings this year that decided, what a really awesome end tease would be, is to drop the name Gandalf. It's like, all right.
They're just following they do that, and there's also, you have the bit that's ends up being a complete non sequitur of the orcs collecting rings.
Yeah.
What it's for, but it's
right.
kind of a non sequitur in terms of this story. But I thought they had fun with it. Brian Cox lately, man, has really brought some comedy to like his ad campaigns.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I don't usually watch commercials, but when I'm doing football, I have to watch commercials. And Uber Eats is one of the sponsors, and they have this string of him kind of being like a curmudgeon, but the things that he's saying, like, he shows that he enrolls in college because he wants to get the access to free Uber Eats, and like he goes up to the table and they're like, oh, sorry, the parent table is over there. He's like, good, mine are dead. I'm a freshman here to enroll. Cox, Brian.
That's pretty good.
So, and it always cracks me up and makes me laugh, his whole mannerism. I thought he brought that energy to this part, and so it just had a vibe that made me laugh. So I had fun with it. I think I showed my thumb, but I gave it a thumbs up too. I thought it fulfilled what I was hoping for out of a kind of Lord of the Rings movie. The theater was pretty packed out when I went on Thursday night, so hopefully a good showing. Maybe they'll make some more of these. The animated style, it is an anime kind of style, but it also reminds me a little bit, I don't know, I'm a kind of fan of the OG Hobbit animated film.
There was a little bit of the
kind of
Ralph
reminded
Bakshi kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of reminded me of that style. I actually
Some of the motion, yeah,
almost
seemed
kind of prefer that animated
rotoscope.
Hobbit movie to the Hobbit movie trilogy, even though I don't hate the Hobbit movie trilogy. But I just, if you looked at my Lord of the Rings ranking, it would be squarely in between the live action films. Something about that old 70s Hobbit energy. Well, as I mentioned, War of the Rohirrim, not the only return we've had to Middle Earth. I believe the first season of Rings of Power debuted in 21
Has it been that
or
long?
20. Actually, I just pulled it up. 22. Sorry.
Okay.
They had, so they're kind of on the House of the Dragon,
That's true, yeah.
mode of every other year, but this was that every other year. It's it had a lot of fanfare when it first kicked off on Labor Day weekend of 2022. Got that first 2 episodes in theaters. We have seen it air a total of 16 episodes, 2 8-episode seasons so far. It has been renewed. I would guess we'll probably see that in 26. Very effects heavy. The second season, I didn't think came back with as much fanfare. They did drop a 3-episode premiere kind of on that same Labor Day weekend. It went strong. It wrapped up, I believe, in early October. The first season was criticized some for being a little bit dry. I thought the second season was a little more engaging, but I have to, it's kind of a thumbs neutral for me. I like Middle Earth. I like the tales. I don't want to give up on this. We have a young Elrond, a young Galadriel. They obviously have Gandalf. This season brought us Tom Bombadil. You have Sauron.
Oh, you could go on
I
and
mean,
on.
there's a lot
So
of
many.
potential here. It just never quite has clicked for me the same way as the best of the films. And episodes tend to, this season, I thought they did a better job. That first season, they were almost always like 75 minutes, which when you're watching 8 episodes of TV, that feels long because on Prime Video, unless you're like me and haven't bought the new tier, you don't have a lot of commercials. Of course, now that they have the commercials in there, they inject them in the worst possible time frames. The show is not shot and paced for commercials like most things are, and so it's like they pop up at the worst possible time. But I thought this season did better of keeping things at least more around an hour. But sometimes, I was more interested in the Elrond Galadriel storylines this year. They kind of dispatched unceremoniously with some of the characters I liked from the first season and stories I liked from the first season. That felt like a choice. I don't dislike it. I like this season more. It has never quite developed into what I was hoping, but I wondered how you feel about the series.
I could do without everything in the show except for the core story of the forming of the Rings of Power. The stuff with Annatar and the elves and Galadriel and her Ring of Power, and the way that affects Elrond and Elrond's desire to help that city where the rings are being forged, and the way that branches off into the Dwarven Kingdom and the rings for the dwarves. All of that works for me very, very strongly. And I think that if you just chunked out that, you would have maybe a 3 or 4 hour Lord of the Rings length movie that would be very good. I could literally do without the entirety of the rest of the show, and I feel like I wouldn't miss a thing. I enjoyed the Harfoots in season 1, but this season they literally go to a place, there's a sandstorm, they go to a place, say they want to help it. That's the whole season for them. And I can't even get started on the humans because I absolutely detest, I loathe everything that's happening in the human plot line. I get that they have to set up a situation where the realm of men are beginning to be corrupted by the 9 rings of power. But good gosh, how boring as butt it is to have a villain who is so bluntly, shallowly, boringly evil. Just like, I'll take the power. Like, ooh, I tricked everyone and they're all stupid because they believe the eagle was here for me. And ooh, ha ha ha. And then to have like a sniveling, like easy to hate character be his assistant who like cowardly stabs a dude in the back and then betrays Isildur. Isildur, whose whole plot in the entire arc of the show is I met a woman in the woods. I think I love her. The end. Like, I abhor everything they do with the humans. I can't stand watching those scenes. The only reason I even watch them, I'm so tempted to just fast forward or skip through them, is because I feel like I'm going to miss something that is going to tie in where season 3 is obviously going to be a lot more about the 9 rings of men influencing them. But just like, oh my gosh, Elendil and Isildur's lost in the woods, and Elendil's trapped, and they're betraying, and there's nothing they can do about it, and it's just so evil, and like, oh my gosh, it's a hard that for the human part, and a pretty high this for everything with actual Sauron and the actual forging of the Rings of Power. So I am kind of locked in the middle, but depending on which episode you show me, I was either really, really high on the show or I thought it was appalling. So I'm a very uneven thumbs neutral.
Yeah. Did you like the second season a little more than the first season?
I did, because that movie within the story was working so well for me. There's this bit that J.R.R. Tolkien was confronted with, how he doesn't necessarily believe in good versus evil, and someone asked him about creating the ultimate evil that is Sauron, and he's like, no, Sauron is not necessarily the ultimate evil. There's like Frodo is not evil for choosing to keep the ring, and it's not necessarily about that. It's about different forces at work, and their portrayal of Sauron as this character who might be someone who was good intentioned, who is lost and might be corrupting and might be corrupt by the evil he is dealing with to gain power. It is played so pitch perfect compared to how trashy and schlocky the human villains are played. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say it's that core story works so well that I do like this better than season 1, because season 1, again, was long, trudging to get through. The highs were there, the lows weren't as low, but like it was more of an even mid. The highs were higher here. And even though they're still doing the thing where like Tom Bombadil drops a line from Gandalf and you go, oh, Gandalf learned it from Tom Bombadil. And they are kind of replicating Helm's Deep, where it's like the dwarves are going to be the riders of Rohan coming in, and it's like it doesn't quite work the same, and they're trying to do the George Lucas, it's like poetry, it rhymes like thing. And
It's because I feel so. I think in all of the films, the battle at Helm's Deep is the high water mark, which is probably why I have Two Towers as my favorite of the films.
Oh, really?
It made sense to me that animated movie went right back there. They hard call on your affinity and love. They're literally at Helm's Deep. Of course, that's, after the battle, they're like, henceforth it shall be called Helm's Deep. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yes, of course. But I don't know. There was just Rings of Power feels like it's trying. I heard somebody say, the problem with the show is that they have talked about, that it seems like the people that are making it don't exactly know where they're going to go, and they started making changes from the source material, which is rankled. Well, but I think
they know where they're going.
You want to keep your hardcore fans. You don't want to stray too far, because I don't know that the show has enough broad appeal to survive if they alienate Lord of the Rings fans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I've seen some mixed responses. It seemed like a lot of people liked season 2 a little bit better, and I'm curious to see where it's going. But I also, at the same time, don't feel like I have any idea of where it's going or where we're going to end up. And all these, it suffers from the same thing that I always struggle with when you do prequels for established stories. Like, oh, Elrond's going to die. He's freaking not going to die. I've seen Lord of the Rings. Oh, Galadriel's going to die. Bet. She's not going to die.
And Elendil and Isildur, we know exactly where the climax of this show is going. And that's one of the things to me is, and they're trying to keep you guessing in a way that they're pulling the story so that maybe you can't tell where it's going, but we know exactly where it's going. The men are going to get the 9 rings. The elves are going to rally a force to march on Mordor because Sauron has his seat on the throne in Mordor. And the men and the elves are going to fight together. And Isildur is going to take up Elendil's sword and chop Sauron's finger off, and the Lord of the Rings is going to happen. So they're kind of stuck. Like, I think the problem right now is they're wheel spinning, trying to make things interesting, and in doing so, they're adding a bunch of very unnecessary. I mean, everything with Gandalf. You're right to question, like, where could that go? Because where is that going to go? He's not going to suddenly come in and help the elves and men. He's not going to suddenly become a bigger part of the story than he was before, because he's always going to be sort of beneath the guidance of Saruman. And like, they're bringing up this dark wizard, like they're going to do this whole original story about Gandalf fighting a dark wizard, and we're supposed to be like super engaged with that. But all that is doing is taking away from telling the story of the Rings of Power, and that drives me crazy.
Yeah, there's so many. I wonder how many seasons they're going to try to make too. Like, I was comforted. I told you I was reading House of the Dragon. I actually read all the way through, which was of Fire and Blood, which made me less excited for the remainder of the show. Spoiler alert, it is
bleak.
It is bleak. But them announcing, I think, that they were only going to make 4 seasons gives you a sense of pace of where they're going to be. It would be nice to know, like, Rings of Power, we ultimately know where you're going to have to end up. I don't need to see 5 more seasons of you telling me Galadriel is going to die for me to know that she's not going to die. All right. Have they announced that there's only 1 more season?
No, but they need to only have 1 more season. 1 for the forging of the elves, 1 for the forging of the dwarves, 1 for the forging of men. End it.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. Got to meet those ring rates.
Yeah. Oh gosh, they could do that so hammy. Like,
at least it is a wonderful time for Middle Earth, and if you're feeling a little Middle Earth fatigue, do yourself a favor: watch the original Lord of the Rings films. It is hard to believe it has been 23 years since Fellowship of the Ring and 21 years since Return of the King. I think those movies, actually, if I recall, they were all December drops.
Yep.
Because I remember coming home from like college break and being like, just, if you've never seen them the first time and you want to just read the book to correspond, make sure for the first movie, you read both the first 2 books, because I was like, you know what? I've never read the books. I finished Fellowship of the Ring like 1 hour before I was supposed to go see the movie. That movie does not conclude where the book there is something very important that happens at the end that I was like, damn. So before 2 Towers, I made sure I read the other 2 books. So,
cool.
Just a fair warning out there for all you Lord of the Rings fans out there. Well, before we get out of here, I was going to take a minute and give you a couple of recommendations for other things that are in theaters or available to you on streaming, because of course we get a lot of things coming out this time of year. I have not yet seen Craven the Hunter, and I'm not sure that would end up on a recommendation list from anyone based on the early buzz. Probably going to see that at some point this week, so you can watch out for a take on that. Eric, are you excited at all
For which one?
Craven the Hunter?
I can review the movie for you right now. They put violence in this one, and it still sucks.
Well, if you're looking for some non-Craven options, I'm going to give one that's in limited release and a couple that are on streaming that you can check out. First, for me, in limited release this week is September 5th. Which I really am excited. This one will go expands nationwide by January 17th, but opens in limited this week. It is set at the 1972 Summer Olympics in Munich. You're following the ABC News crew that's using brand new technology, which is live via satellite, where they can broadcast the games. You know, things we take for granted nowadays was kind of brand new there. They have like the B team coming in for relief. It's supposed to be a quiet day at the Olympics when shots ring out in the Olympic Village. If you know anything about the history of the 1972 Olympics, the Israeli delegation was taken hostage by some PLO terrorists. And so this follows the ABC News crew as they try to determine what's happening and are covering the story live, and integrates a lot of stock footage of Jim McKay, who was the host of Wide World of Sports and was the anchor of that Olympics, doing the live on-air footage. They have an actor portraying Peter Jennings, who was just a young cub reporter at that time, assigned to the Summer Olympics for ABC, who ends up in the middle of it all. Rune Arledge, who was a very famous person for ABC Sports. If you're a big sports fan like me, like helped create Monday Night Football, helped create all these things. He was in charge of the production. Peter Sarsgaard plays him. John Magaro is the producer who kind of gets thrown into things. It's only an hour and a half. It moves at a very tense pace. It is a sad story. It's historical. You can look it up and prepare yourself, as I prepared my wife. But I love the way this one's put together. I'm a big fan of journalism films. This is actually in my top 10 for the year currently. Very excited for more people to get to check it out. If you're in one of the cities where it opened in limited release, this is worth your time to go seek out. A couple of new streaming ones that I liked, both on Netflix. First, Maria. This one dropped on Wednesday. Features Angelina Jolie as the famous singer Maria Callas. This one taking place near the end of her life in the 70s, directed by Pablo Larraín, who gave us a kind of snapshot of Princess Diana in the movie Spencer a couple of years ago, gave us a snapshot of Jackie Kennedy in the movie Jackie a couple of years before that with Natalie Portman. This is another just like a snapshot of her life. She's struggling with health. She's struggling to kind of regain her vocal form, but she's also looking back on her life and some of her experiences, being interviewed and questioned by a young man played by Cody Smith-McPhee. Incredible performance from Angelina Jolie. She pours her heart and soul into this. She is a Golden Globe nominee for it. I think she will probably be an Oscar nominee for it. The movie is beautifully shot. I actually personally liked it a little more than I liked Spencer or Jackie, but it's kind of in that same vein, part of what they're calling a trilogy from Pablo Larraín, looking at these kind of powerful women, but a great lead performance from Angelina Jolie. But if you're looking for something that's not quite as serious, we also got a Christmas action film. Thank you, Netflix. Carry On. This one features Taron Egerton, pictured here as a TSA agent working at LAX on Christmas Day when terrorists have a plot to get something on a plane. They slip him an earpiece, Jason Bateman whispering dangerous nothings into his ear as he is compelled to try to help them. This movie has an amazing cast too. Danielle Deadweiler's in this, Logan Marshall Green, Dean Norris, a lot of different character actors. Theo Rossi is in this one. I liked the pacing. I liked the action. Some people have said it hews too close to Die Hard 2. I love Die Hard. I like Die Hard 2. I thought this was better than Die Hard 2. I gave this one, ended up giving it 3.5 stars. So I definitely give it a thumbs up. It was a pleasant surprise. Kind of adds to that holiday action gray area. So those were a couple of films I've seen this week that I really enjoyed. If you're looking for something else to sink into, the latter two, of course, on Netflix, so you can just pop back on a Saturday night and stream that at home.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
No, I finally got my wife to watch Longlegs this week, and
how did she like it?
She liked it a lot, but I think she had the same opinion that I did, which is if they had gotten an unknown actor to take the same direction and give much of the similar performance as Nicolas Cage, it would have been less distracting that he was doing something that Nicolas Cage would do. Like, it would have been more creepy in this sense that you're not like, oh, he's doing his thing, like it's still a remarkably effective movie. It's still great, but I still don't understand why they let that girl grow up to be in the FBI. Why?
I mean, I enjoyed it. That one's still sitting up there near my top 10. It is no longer my number one horror film of the year, though. That belongs to a movie that opens in a couple of weeks that we will be talking about.
Yes.
That I was blessed to have already seen. That is up inside the top 5. Another of my favorite movies of the year reminds me, Conclave, now streaming on Peacock. If you have a Peacock subscription, Conclave. The more time that goes by, the more I like it. It has vaulted up to number 2. We'll see if that's as low as it remains when we do our end of the year.
That's one with Ray Fiennes.
With Ray Fiennes. Just a fantastic film. It debuted on Peacock yesterday. Or if you are filled with self-loathing, Joker Fully Ado debuted on Max yesterday. So, if you hate yourself, go to Max. If you're looking for a great film, Peacock, Netflix, we're getting a wealth of streaming options in addition to all the holiday fare. If you're like me, you probably end up watching 1 or 2 Hallmark Christmas movies a week just to keep the peace in the household. So that should do it for us this week. We will be back next week. A couple of big family-friendly releases. We are going to be talking about Sonic 3. So that should be quite fun. Will this be the dark climatic trilogy of the Sonic? No, I'm just kidding. They're Sonic movies. But this one, I'm pretty sure it's Keanu Reeves, right? That's the voice of
Shadow.
I didn't look it up, but when I was watching the trailer the other night, I'm like, oh, I recognize that voice.
Yep.
Very distinctive. So it looks like they're having fun with it. Jim Carrey in a dual role is always something to behold. So
yeah, it's interesting watching the discourse over the cast coming back. Like, Jim Carrey went into retirement and made this quote that someone would have to give him a script literally written in gold in order to get him out of retirement, and then here he is back for Sonic 3. So
maybe they wrote it on gold leaf paper,
right? The director said something about like ink, gold ink, or something like that. But and then you have like Idris Elba who plays Knuckles, who just talks passionately about the movie, and then you just have like a really good cast. And I don't know, I think it should be fun. Like, I think it's funny because like we're gonna do Sonic 3 and I'm only gonna be able to do the 1, but we went to see Moana 2 and they played a trailer for Mufasa. And that's the first time that my son was like brought up randomly in conversation, like, oh no, that weekend is movie weekend. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, we have to go see the movie with the lions. I was like, what?
Oh, Mufasa.
No. Yeah.
You're not excited for Mufasa. I
actually am, because of the director.
Yeah.
But they make a point in the big trailer / behind the scenes thing that they're doing, they make a point for Lin-Manuel Miranda to talk about what a big legacy The Lion King is. And I literally said out loud in the theater this time, because we were the only ones there, it's like, yeah, because you haven't made 1,000 of them and diluted it yet. I mean,
yeah, well, I hope it's going to be good and entertaining. I'm like you. That is, Mufasa will be a Christmas family obligation.
yeah.
But I'm decently excited to see what they do with it. This time of year is big Oscar bait films and a lot of family friendly or spectacle films. That's kind of the time of year that we're in, because that's what are they going to get people to the theater to see, things you can see with your kids. And that's why that is one of the reasons I think they did Lord of the Rings movie in an animated form, because it, not that there is no violence, but it definitely stylizes and mutes. There were a fair number of kids that I would wager were between like 8 and 12 at the screening that I was at. So it makes it a more inclusive. And you have things like Sonic and Mufasa where you can take, you can go all ages. You need some of those outlets. Christmas Day, we're not getting those movies. We're getting a
Bob Dylan biopic and Nosferatu
and Baby Girl and The Fire Inside. So I mean, there's some great options on Christmas Day, but it's kind of these next 2 weekends where we're getting more of the stuff that I think you're gonna stick with families. So should be fun. But I'll look forward to doing our Sonic 3 deep dive. I probably will try to rewatch the other 2 Sonic movies
I haven't seen them.
You've never seen a Sonic movie?
Nope. So that's going to be something.
Actually, don't know if it'd be more fun to just have you go to see Sonic 3 without
might
never
happen.
seeing anything that had come before, and see if it changes the perception.
Yeah, that very well might happen, because we still have we get out for break after next week. So
yep, me too. So the joys of working in a school. Well, we will look forward to that, and then the following week we will definitely be doing Nosferatu. One of us may have already seen it, and we'll be looking forward to talking about that and a lot of the Christmas Day films. But until then, hope you guys have a wonderful week, especially those of you that are wrapping up the last week of school, and we will see you at the movies.